welcome to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and I'm here for you guys with a video to talk about Spike Brothers in Premium. So I've made the poll on Facebook for you guys to choose which deck you want to see first, and it was pretty amazing to see that a lot of you guys wanted to see the Bad End Dragger deck. So the Bad End Dragger deck is a deck that you could do the combo with Good End and Bad End, and then also use or abuse the mechanic that we have right now with the force markers. So get the double break ride with 2 extra force markers, which is amazing to get off. But before we do that, there is a deck that we have to go through before we will be able to do the Bad End Dragger deck, and that's actually the Agro Spike Brother deck. This is the deck that won the ARG in the USA, which Living Proof used like a version of this deck to be able to win that tournament, which was a big achievement for him and for every Spike Brother player, which is pretty nice to see, and congrats to him again to be able to win that tournament. So I will go through my own build of that deck, and then after that we could go and check the Bad End Dragger deck. So first, for the starter, you use Mega Trainer, which is the one from the V series. You use him because you don't want to use a lot of counter blasts in the early game. So that's why he's pretty nice to be able to give you the extra card, the cards that you need before you have to use your counter blasts. So that's nice. You ride on the top of him, get the extra card, get the right cards to your hand in the early game, and put a lot of pressure on your opponent when you go into your grade 2 turn. That's when this deck gets very strong, and that's why this deck is so good. So going into the grade 3s, first grade 3 that we have right here is of course 4 copies of Juggernaut Maximum. This is your ace, this is the starter, the star of the deck. Riding him is not bad because you still get the force marker. As you can see, it's all about getting the force markers on one Vanguard circle. You abuse that Vanguard circle with multi-attacks, and that's when you destroy your opponent. If you go second, then it's alright to ride this card because you will ride and stride, so you don't really have to use his ability. But when you ride him or call him, of course, as a Vanguard, he get the extra 10k, and at the beginning of your main phase he goes into the soul to be able to get you a new Juggernaut from your deck. If you go first, then the card that you really want to ride is actually General Siegfried. General Siegfried, of course, also has the force marker, so when you ride into him, it's always good. The reason why you want to ride him first, because he also gives the pressure or the hit pressure on your opponent, and that's why if you go first, then you could abuse his ability. The tech card that I use in this deck is actually 2 copies of Star. It's never bad to ride Star because he does give you the draw power, but at the same time he's very good as a Vanguard because he gets you the right cards to be able to do your combos. So having him on the Vanguard circle is really nice because he will be able to get you your Mega Instructor, which is the stand trigger that give you the ability to do the multi-attack. If you haven't seen this deck in action, you could also put a comment in the comment section below, and I will definitely do a combo video on that. Just show you how the deck works in action, because this deck is very explosive, and that's why it's doing so good in this format. So going into the grade 2s, which are actually the cards that makes everything happen, and that's when you go into the grade 2 turn. So let's say that you have him in your hand, which is Spike Bouncer, which is your best right target. Ride into him, Soul Blast 1, Counter Blast 1, and you will be able to call from the top 2 if your Vanguard is grade 2, grade 3 from the grade 3, and so forth. So when you ride into him, he gives you a +1. If you have him as a Vanguard, you attack with him at the end of the battle, you can put it into your soul to draw a card for 1 counter blast. It's alright skill, but you never really use it. Sometimes if you have enough counter blasters you do, but in the most situations you don't, because there are a lot of other cards that you could use for 1 counter blast. So he is good just to give you the extra attacker or booster that you want to get on your field, especially on your grade 2 turn. And then you could also abuse him with Agrius. Just call him, call something with Agrius, and then after that, when you attack with Agrius, bind and call him back and be able to call something again, if you have the counter blasters to use anyway. Next card that you want is 4 copies of Braki. I play 4 copies of Braki and only 3 copies of Panther because in my opinion Braki is better in the early game. Panther is better when you go with the combo that you could do with him and Instructor, that you give him the extra 15k, and after that use Instructor first and then use him, so his ability will not activate anymore because Instructor will bind and call him back, which is the extra 15k, so he would not go into your soul. But Braki is better in the early game because the extra 20, so he gets an extra 10k, the 20k will be able to hit everything and destroy everything as well, so that's why I would still play 4 copies of Braki and only 3 copies of Panther. Now Braki in the late game is also very good, he still get 10k, which is nice in the most situations. I play 1 Laser Blackguard because he is pretty good to combo with Star, so that's the reason why you play him. Play him at 1 is enough because you can always put him back to your deck if you have him in the drop zone, like with Wonder Boy or with cards like your G Guardians. So for the grade 1s, you play 12 grade 2s of course to be able to put pressure on your opponent. First grade 1 that I play at 4 is of course Commander Gary Cannon. You could play this card at 3 or at 4, it's only about depending on your playstyle if you want to play 3 or 4 Stride Fallers. So if you play 4 Stride Fallers you play 3 Cannon, if you play 4 Cannon you play 3 Stride Fallers. It's all depending on your playstyle. I play only 3 Stride Fallers because I play 9 grade 3s, so that's the reason. If I would play 8 grade 3s then I would add 1 more Stride Faller, which is Verdi. So Verdi at 3, he does help you out to not always have to discard your grade 3s because your grade 3s are very good as regards. So it's really up to you. In my situation I like playing both, sometimes I play this, sometimes I play that, but it's really depending on your playstyle. So the Commander Gary Cannon on this situation, play him at 4 because he does help out to fix your hand and put a lot of hit pressure on your opponent. Also, when you put him on the field, he's an extra booster, and then when that attack hits, he goes into your soul to give you new cards. So 2 new cards or 1 new card because 1 will go back to the deck, but he does fix your hand and fix your deck as well. So that's why I love to play him at 4. He's a card that puts pressure on your opponent but also works great with the mechanic of the deck, especially if you want to leave an open Vanguard circle. And then you play 3 copies of Wonder Boy. In my opinion, no reason to play him at 4 in premium. He's good to do that little combo that you could do with him on your GB8 turn with like cards like Spike Bouncer, putting the bouncer back and recalling it. It's also nice if you have enough counterblasts to do that. But at the same time, he is the card that puts everything that you need back to your deck, like your Laser Blackguard, like your Star, like your Mega Instructor. So all of those cards you can put them back with him, so that's why you play him. And then I play 2 copies of Gyro Slinger. This card is good. You don't really need to play 4 or 3. 2 is enough in my opinion, and that's why you could combo him very nice with different cards, like with Agro, with Spike Bouncer. There are a lot of different cards that you could combo him very well with. Going into the grade 0s. First, of course, we play 4 copies of Mega Instructor. As Mega Instructor is a very good card by itself, it's really nice to abuse that Vanguard circle that you have a lot of force markers on. So boosting with him, or even attacking with him, is pretty amazing to be able to bind and call that unit that you have on the markers. And that's when you have multi-strong attacks. So if you have 2 or 3 of these cards charged, then you could do 3 or 4 crazy attacks with a lot of power. So that's why this card is good, and that's also why you play Star and Laser Blackguard, to be able to get him. Also, being a stand trigger is not that bad, because the combo that you do with Agro is you can leave that Vanguard circle right there, with a lot of markers. You just leave that Vanguard right there, and then if you get a stand trigger and you drive check, you can restand that unit and attack with it again, because it doesn't go back to the deck, so it's good. So 4 copies of him. Some people would like to play him at 3 or at 2. I like to play him at 4 in this deck because it does help out if you have him in your hand or you drive check him, so it's not that bad. And also you need him in your deck if you want to get him out with cards like Star. They're playing 4 crits, of course, from the V serie, because they have more shield and they give more power, so that's why you play them. 4 draw PGs, because we don't have space in the great ones for any other PGs, so that's why you play these. And also being a draw trigger is always nice, give you some advantage in Spike Brothers. For the heal triggers, there is no reason to play the Dudley heal. The counter charge is nice, but in this situation the shield value and the power that this card gives is more important than Dudley name, so you don't have to search with Jelly Bean or with the counter charge that card could give you. Also, you don't really search your heals in this deck, so it's not about getting to the GB8, but sometimes you could go to the GB8 as your third stride if you have like 2 or 3 copies of this in your hand. Going into the stride deck or some force markers, you could use any force markers that you want. In my situation, I like, of course, to use these at the Vanguard circle and these as a Vanguard circle, but it's really up to you to use whatever you want. For these strides, or let's go to the G Guardians first. G Guardians, you could use whatever you want. I play always 2 copies of Linus at least. He's good, give you that shield value, and sometimes to go into the GB8. So 2 Linus, in my opinion, does help out a lot. Then of course playing 2 Hecatomb. Again, you don't play any parkour or anything that you need a lot of Cray Elementals for, but at least I do always like to play 1 Desmiel. So 5 G Guardians are, in my opinion, enough to be able to get you to the GB8 if you need to, but in the most situations you just have them for the shield value or just to go into the GB. Then I also play 1 copy of Sebreeze. Always nice to have him. You could just go into him or flip him with Picro. It does help out a lot in some situations. The Counterblast 2 is very heavy, but at the same time it's really nice to be able to have him if you need him. You could of course take him out to put anything that you want in here if you want to play something different. Then I play 1 Dust. It's nice to have at least 1 in your deck. I mean, you can't use more than 1, but I like it. And sometimes he does help out to win you games if you know that your opponent has a lot of G Guardians or heal triggers that they could use. Dust is always nice, has to have that extra option, but it's another card that you can take out like the Sebreeze to put anything that you want in this deck. Then 2 Picaros. Yeah, Picaro is just a card that always gives you advantage. I like this card a lot, and I will always play at least 1. You could again play 1 and take the other one out if you want to, because you would never go into 2 just to have more options, but I like to have him as the extra option if I need him. So sometimes, let's say you have 2 G Guardians in hand and you go first, so they attack until you use your multiple G Guardians, and then you could go to the first Piccolo. If that doesn't finish the game, go to the second Piccolo. If that doesn't finish the game, then you go to the GB8. So GB8, always play him, of course. I don't really have to explain how good this card is. It's the card that always wins you games if you go into him. Then I play 2 copies of Supernova. Why not 4? Why only 2? And why I don't play Miracle Ace but 4 copies of Agro? Because Miracle Ace in this deck you don't really get him off. If you get him off, that's amazing, but that's good for you, but it's not that easy because there are no cards that go back to the deck, so you can't really get him off. But Supernova, on the other hand, he's good if you don't have any counterblasts. You could always charge that Mega Instructor to give you the extra attack. So it's a very sneaky tactic, but it works really good. In the most situations you use him if you don't have counterblasts, or just to flip a copy of him, which is also good to go into the GB. Or you could play Mirandol, but I don't really see a reason because Supernova does better in this deck. Then of course 4 copies of Agrius. Agrius is your main go-to strike target in this deck, because this deck, as I said again, you ride into multiple grade 3s to be able to have multiple force markers, and those force markers on that circle, let's say you have 2 or 3, that's the circle that you abuse with multi-attack. and that would make you have a very strong attacking rear guard. So let's say you have a Juggernaut or even a high speed Bracky. Bracky is 10k by himself, you have 2 force markers that's 30k, but when you recall him you have an extra 10k, so that's 40k. So I have a 40k Bracky. If it's a Juggernaut, it's a 34. If you have another force marker, it's a 53. So it's amazing. So that's the reason why you like to play Agro, and it's your go-to stride in this deck. So that's actually it. The deck is very simple to play. You just need to practice your matchups and see when you rush and when not, but the deck does very good. If you like this deck, then you would love the next one, which is the Bad and Dragon version of the deck. But tell me what you want to see next, and again, if you haven't checked our Facebook group yet, then you could always find the link in any video that we put on YouTube. Go there and check our Facebook group out, because we put a lot of different posts right there that you could choose what you want to see next, or just comment on this video, that would work as well. But again, the next video will be the deck which uses the Bad and Dragon. The Bad and Dragon deck is amazing. I will explain it in short, but in that video I'll explain it how the deck works. Well, it's pretty easy actually. You have a Bad and Dragon as your Vanguard, and you have a full field, and that's when you stride it to good end. Then you attack with this first. So you attack with the good end first. At the end of the battle, good end goes back to the extra deck, and that would give you the opportunity to get 2 grade 3s from your deck. So let's say that you get 2 grade 3s that have the force marker. So let's say 2 Juggernauts, or a Juggernaut and a Siegfried, it depends on what you have left in your deck. So let's say that you don't play Siegfried and you have just 2 Juggernauts. That's good enough. You don't have any other Vanguard circle left, so you have to ride both Juggernauts. In this situation, you ride both of them and you get the break ride twice. You don't have to get a break ride and something else to get the break ride twice. Why? Because you don't ride and then ride. It doesn't work like that. You ride both of them at the same time, which would mean that you get the break ride twice. But you can't have both grade 3s, so one of them will go into your soul. But again, you ride both of them at the same time, which means you get 2 force markers and the break ride twice. So everything that attacks will get an extra 20k because of the break ride skill, and you have it twice. And then you also get 2 extra force markers, giving that to any Vanguard circle that you could abuse. Now from that moment on, there are a lot of cards that could give you advantage, like Laser Black card, or like Star, that could give you more attacks, or even cards that we don't really use a lot but could still be very helpful, like Wing Killer Misery, because Wing Killer Misery have her on the field. You don't really have to make her charge, but from that moment on, attack with Misery, and then you could get like a Laser Black card, and then you could start the whole combo up. So that's the really good thing about this deck, that you could really use cards like Misery to make multi-attacks, and also you definitely abuse cards like Mega Instructor. You could abuse cards like Juggernaut or High Speed Bracket to make the multi-attacks on that regular circle. But the deck is really nice to play, and it also uses a lot of these standard cards as in its mechanic, so you have a very strong early game. But in the most situations, the deck is less let's say competitive than this one. The one that I just did a deck profile on is more competitive because it's very easy to play and it has a lot of good matchups. The Bad and Dragon deck is more of a fun deck. I would not say it's a deck that you would take that fast into a tournament, but if you would manage it, if you play it really well, if you play it multiple times, then it is a very strong deck, and a lot of people do not know how to play against it. So that was it for me and for this deck profile. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for more Crushing the Meta videos. Till next time.